It's time to go live. It's time to go live. Oh boy. Yeah. First things first. Welcome to CNN. I am your host, the underdog, Kirk Kennedy. Let's go in. On this channel, we take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. If you are of the Christian tradition, such as I am, then you know that our salvation comes from an event in the past, but we are looking towards the future. We live in light of the future when he returns. We want to remember the future right there, and right there. Okay. Man, a lot of times when you watch like the internet, like things that like go viral and stuff, you really can't trust virality, right? You can't trust things that go viral, and you can't trust the quote unquote outrage or whatever it is, right? We live in, it's really interesting because we live in a culture that we're driven by social media, but it's not like it was 4 years ago when we were in COVID, locked indoors, where everything was like, but we live in a viral culture, a virality, where everyone either wants to go viral or a lot of people are reacting to viral content. You got people teaching that I can teach people how to go viral. I saw something on Facebook where a guy was saying, I teach Christians how to go viral. If viral were that easy, it could be taught, then everybody would be doing it. So stop insulting our intelligence, man. Virality is somewhat some degree of sovereignty, some degree of right time, right place, all of it, all right? But viral content, you have to be careful of viral content because we live in a society where, so there was a term, I talked about this recently, called virtue signaling, right? Well, virtue signaling is like, oh, I'm letting people know that I care about this cause. And I want, what that really means is you're just self-righteous. You think you're better than people because you care about this more than other people, right? So we live in a culture of self-righteousness, right? Where a lot of people just think they're better than other people because I would never do this or I did that. And this is where cancel culture is. If you really strip away all these sort of colloquial psychological terms like cancel, what is cancel culture? It's self-righteous people judging other people when their habits, patterns, sins are exposed, right? No one wants to be canceled when their sins are exposed, right? But everyone's quick to talk about, I knew it, I couldn't try. So in this self-righteous society we live in, people will go crazy for wild things, right? And some things are wild, like what Shaq said to Angel Reese on her Unapologetically Angel Reese podcast. Now, this video clip we're about to watch is short, but it's gone super viral, over 15 million, I believe, watches of this thing, because what Shaq said to Angel Reese. Now, people are jumping out the window, and I get it. I think what Shaq said, as you're about to see, there's a deeper issue to what Shaq said here. But first, let's watch the virality of this clip, all right? And then we'll talk about it. So he's doing an interview with Angel Reese, and he's explaining to her like stuff like that the WNBA should lower the rim to like 9'9" or whatever, because he said he wants to see women dunk, and Angel Reese hates the fact that he's saying that. All right. Watch this brief clip, and then let's talk about what's actually happening here. All right.
I'm not imagining.
Let me finish. Imagine you in the same little shirt you had on at the Wild and Out show, dunking. You know how many t-shirts you gonna sell, cuz? You tripping.
Oh my
what?
God.
What?
Oh God.
The same little shirt you had on.
Okay, all right.
Bro, ability to dunk. Bro, imagine you in
I'm not imagining.
All right. Let me explain to you what's happening here. So Angel Reese is trying to make herself a sex symbol of sorts. And here's the reality. In the culture we live in, which we're going to talk about in a second, being a sex symbol is not very difficult. And we'll talk about why in a second. But Angel Reese has been, since the offseason of the WNBA, she's removed herself from all the Caitlin Clark stuff, right? She's not dealing with that much. She did mention something about Caitlin Clark fans, apparently on her podcast. They got a little bit of people upset, right? Can't want to cancel her. But she's basically somewhat of like a not trying to be, but almost like a supermodel / basketball player / podcaster / whatever, right? She's putting herself out there. And so that's fine, all right? But here's what happened in this clip. So Shaq saw her. She was in a very so on the clip I'm showing you, the reason why it looks really big is because it's on a Twitter page. If I made it smaller, on the left, they would show you the outfit that she was wearing that Shaq was talking about. And it shows her body in a lot of form. Angel Reese is developed. So Shaq is saying to her, can you imagine if you were wearing that outfit, right? This particular outfit, in a game and dunking? He said, man, dudes will watch that. She was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to. It's clear she's not really comfortable with it, okay? But he's basically saying, if you were wearing this outfit, men would watch that because men want to watch pretty women dunking and stuff like that. This is Shaq's whole perspective, all right? The clip has gone viral because people are saying, like, Shaq, what is this dude doing? He's like he's like flirting with Angel Reese, and he's like 30 years older than her or something like that. So there's another clip that we're not going to show that Shaq is basically saying, if anyone thinks that I'm flirting with Angel Reese, then you don't know me. She's like a daughter to me, right? He's talking like that. So he's saying, don't get it twisted. These comments are not me. I'm just talking to her. Because he was saying basically, if you wore that shirt and you dunked, you know how many guys would buy that shirt? He said that shirt, he's thinking, the way he's talking, he's thinking from a business perspective. But clearly he understands that Angel Reese, many find attractive, or at least they lust after her, which is the real issue we're going to talk about in a second. So Shaq is basically trying to give her some game, like you could make a lot of money. She was like, no, oh my gosh, I don't want to. She's clearly trying to move on, and Shaq keeps belaboring the point. A lot of people got offended, and they're calling Shaq a creeper, all this stuff. No one's saying that about Bill Belichick, though, who's 69 and his girlfriend is 24. Like, I think this is why I don't trust outrage society, right? Outrage culture. I don't trust it. This is self-righteousness. It's selective. This is why I don't trust it. It's selective. I don't hear people being outraged about Bill Belichick, but everyone's trying to be like mad at Shaq, right? I'm not saying what Shaq did wasn't wild. I'm just saying it's a crazy thought, all right? So here's the thing I do want to point out, though. People are saying Shaq was I don't think that's what Shaq's problem was. Maybe he is attracted to Angel Reese. I don't even care. I don't think that that's the main issue. I think what Shaq is doing, this is what I think Shaq has, which many people now have. And by the grace of God, hopefully you don't. I can say that I don't, but I'm not exempt from this. Shaq has the OnlyFans syndrome. And I don't think we realize how significant. Now, if you don't watch OnlyFans, I don't, you don't. If you probably are heard of the website, right? We'll talk about it in a second. But Shaq has OnlyFans syndrome. I don't know if Shaq is looking at Angel Reese outside of talking to her like he's a daughter. I have no idea. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't, right? But Shaq has OnlyFans syndrome. And I don't think we realize the significance. This is why I think no one's really like outraged. Or if they are outraged, it's like, oh, Bill Belichick. No one's outraged at these great discrepancies between an older guy like Bill Belichick, who's I believe 69, and his fiance, who's 24. You got Al Pacino, who's like in his 80s, has a baby with a woman in like her 30s. Something like that. Al Pacino's getting ready to die, and apparently someone, was it Bill Maher? Someone who's he's like 60 something, was seen with Al Pacino's baby mom recently. And culture is accepting it. And I think it's because we have OnlyFans syndrome. Let me explain what I mean. I want to explain what I mean by this by looking at a brief article that should blow your mind. When I saw the headline for this article, I don't even go to this particular website. It's one of those like celebrity gossip stuff. I don't read a lot of that stuff. I just don't have time for it. I just feel like, it's not the best use of my time. I could be doing something else. Anyway, right? Let me show you OnlyFans syndrome in its most crazy moment. Look at this article with me. I saw this article, today's the 26th. I saw this article yesterday, the headline, and didn't read it until today when I decided to do this video. All right? Look at this article right here. Boy, oh boy. Listen to this. You cannot make this stuff up. This is the OnlyFans syndrome. This is why Shaq is saying what he's saying. And this is why no one cares about Bill Belichick. And there's a deeper problem, right? So let's get to it. Here we go. Top OnlyFans creator, not the person who made the website, but a creator of content on the website. Top OnlyFans creator retires at 28 after earning $67 million in just 3 years. Top OnlyFans creator retires at 28 after earning $67 million in just 3 years. She earned $22,333,000 3 years in a row on OnlyFans. Here's what the article says. A popular OnlyFans creator has decided to call it a day at 28. She's 28 years old, after reportedly earning a whopping $67 million. OnlyFans has become a very lucrative way for people to earn a bit of money on the side, and for some, it lets them retire early. That's an interesting way to put it. It's no secret the platform is largely seen as an adult website now, which means there can be a stigma around it. However, those who judge the creators on the platform might go a bit quiet when they see how much money there is to be made. Karina Koff, one of the most prominent creators on OnlyFans, has been able to retire age 28 after earning a staggering amount of money. The content creator, known for her association with YouTube star David Dobrik and his popular group, The Vlog Squad, made her announcement on X. In that post quickly drew attention. Koff wrote, "No more link in bio," suggesting she would no longer promote her OnlyFans content to her millions of followers. All right. And it talks about she gained fame as part of Dobrik's vlogging crew on YouTube, where she shared humorous moments, vlogs, and collaborations with other influencers. Launching her own channel in 2016, she built a following of 1.69 subscribers. Her influence on social media expanded on Instagram, and then it says, in 2021, she decided to join OnlyFans, responding to demand from her fan base and quickly finding financial success. And this is her right here with the glasses on. And this is Dobrik, who I think she would say is her best friend. She bought him a $500,000 Ferrari. So this is her. And she did 3 years on OnlyFans and made $67 million. Listen to this. Within the first 48 hours of launching her account, she reportedly earned $1 million, a milestone she shared in a video on Dobrik. So this is Dobrik right here. That's him, and that's her on a YouTube channel. In a recent Twitch stream, Kof revealed that the amount she had earned from her time on the 18-plus platform was $67 million. Okay. Let's have this conversation now that I've said that. Let me explain to you what OnlyFans syndrome is. And let me do that by, let's talk about the reality of OnlyFans. OnlyFans is an adult website, and largely people just do sexual activities on OnlyFans, but not all of them do. Sometimes women who are attractive just promote themselves doing typical things, like they might promote their exercise routines or whatever, and people pay them money to just have access to them. Either nude photos, access to their bodies, access to their daily regimen. If they're a celebrity, They might like show different things that they're doing throughout the day, and people pay money, largely men. I think the statistics are staggering that it's largely a male, financially dominated. Not males are on the site as much as women, but males are the ones who pay the most money to see women. Obviously, the girl, as we saw, is a pretty woman, and she made $67 million showing her body and different things on this platform, and retired at 28. She's 28 years old, is a multi-millionaire. Now, I'm going to separate this statement, what I'm about to say. I'm going to separate the fact that I'm a believer, a Christian, and just make this statement. From a capitalistic perspective, right? From a, America is a country about capital. We care about money more than anything else. Even believers who claim that they believe in Christ care more about money and power than they do about perseverance and obedience. Let's just keep it 1,000. And if you watch my content, you know that's what I say, right? From a capitalistic perspective, she is a success story and will be if you look at money. If you think about it from a money perspective, hey, look, she was able to, in 3 years, amass $67 million. I have no idea how much she paid in taxes and all of that. But that's still, even if she paid half of that in taxes, she got $30 million in 3 years. That's stuff that people used to win on the sweepstakes. I mean, remember, if you're old enough to remember you get them sweepstakes, them Reader's Digest sweeps, or whatever they were, and people win all this money. Or that's the kind of stuff where you just hope that you play the lottery and you hit big and you win all this money. I mean, just from showing her body, I haven't seen it, but I would imagine in video and pictures, she was able to make $67 million. Direct to consumer, right? No pimp, no industry, no studio, adult film studio, no nothing. Just straight content to consumer, commerce to content creator. Boom. Multi-millionaire. 67 million. Okay, now that we've said that, now let me put my hat back on as a believer. And let's have this conversation about the reality of OnlyFans. I'm not talking about the lust and all of that of it. I'm going to talk about something that I think is just more sad. And I think it's why Shaq said what he said to Angel Reese. Why it didn't even cross his mind. Why Bill Belichick at 69 can date at 20. Websites like OnlyFans that usually have younger women, older men give money to these women. That's how, there are probably men that gave Corinne Koff tens of thousands of dollars just because they thought she was pretty. Just because they wanted to see her body. I don't know if she had intercourse on her show. I have no idea. I didn't want to even research it enough to know. I saw pictures on her Twitter feed, and I thought in bikini, I thought if she's putting this stuff on her OnlyFans, I'm sure, then it makes sense to me. But here's the deeper problem with OnlyFans. Direct-to-consumer money for beauty. OnlyFans is revealing something that I feel like nobody's talking about. And now when I say what I'm about to say, I'm not saying this self-righteously. I'm actually sad about what I'm about to say. OnlyFans is proving two things to me. And this is primarily towards men, although I'm sure women watch other women and give money, right? So it's to whoever. But for a 28-year-old girl, just because she's pretty, to make $67 million showing her body for 3 years. What the reality of OnlyFans is, it is exposing how lonely and desperate people really are. I'm not saying this self-righteously, because I've been lonely. You can be lonely and be married and be lonely. You can be lonely in a crowded room with people and just feel alone. But there is a loneliness epidemic, right? There's a loneliness. I'm not talking about the lust part of it. That's, everyone talks about that. We got to end pornography and you got to fight your lust, and I get it, right? That's not what we're talking about today, because that's low hanging fruit. I want to talk about how desperate and lonely people are, and how sad that is, and how that should grieve many of us. Most people will read that article and self-righteously judge this girl if you're a believer or whatever. If you have a moral high ground that you would never do OnlyFans. Most people will judge how she looked and what she did. I'm not judging her. The Lord would judge. Jesus said, I didn't come to judge, but to bring salvation to the world. When I come back, I'm bringing judgment. So I'm not judging people for what they do. I want to know, like, what is it exposing, though? What does it mean that she could make $67 million just because she's pretty and shows her body? Maybe she showed herself in intercourse. I don't know. How lonely and desperate people are. I can't imagine me giving someone money because they're attractive and I'm getting to see their body on a TV screen. I will never meet this person. I will probably never have any interaction. Maybe at best, I'll say something on Twitter or comment and she may comment back. But for the most part, this woman is off limits to me. The only access I have is with my eyes, where the lust is. But it's deeper than lust. Lust is low-hanging fruit. How desperate people are and how lonely they are that they would make a woman a multi-millionaire just from looking at her body through images and video. We always talk about lust and pornography and the problem, but we never talk about the underlying issue of these things. There is a loneliness epidemic, a desperation epidemic that is killing us. Now, on the front end, it looks like just lust and all of that. And it is, right? That stuff is true. We can talk about that all day. We can have that conversation. But what's really happening is the culture is an OnlyFans culture, and two things are happening. On one side, you have the even further than celebrities. Now, when you're a celebrity, you've always been able to do whatever you want, and you'll be above the law, above the court of public opinion even, right? Celebrities have always, men like Hugh Hefner have dated women in their 20s when he was 80, and no one said anything because they have money. Like when you have money, it's like, hey, you're allowed to do that because you're rich, which is the stupidest thing ever. This is why Jesus said, what would it profit a man to gain the entire world but lose his soul? Like that, I hope that woman finds the Lord, because that $67 million ain't gonna do nothing for her after this life. It may provide for her family in the next, but that's all it'll do. In eternity, currency. In eternity, when you die, your currency was your character. Your currency was your character. How did you act? How did you live? What did you believe? When you die, your currency is not how much your 401k, how much money you made. That $67 million will not mean anything the moment she takes her last breath. Her currency will be her character. But when I look at this, I'm not worried about the lust right now. That's a given. But how desperate are you to give a woman that you'll never meet just because you're attracted to her? How desperate and how lonely are people that are just doing that? Like when I read that article, I just stopped for a second and thought, wow. Now from an American, the American dream perspective, hey, bravo, miss. Bravo. You are an American dream success story. Bravo. Bravo. In terms of just making money. Wow. I mean, the women that look pretty, that are gonna try to emulate what she did, is gonna be phenomenal. They're gonna all like, oh my gosh, that story's gonna go super viral, and every girl that's pretty is gonna try to be an OnlyFans model just because that's the American dream. See, we have to understand that what's happening in America is that America has never really had the character and integrity that we thought America had. What's happening is the American dream is what everyone's after. And even in the political realm, it's really about who determines the American dream. Who determines what it is? The sexual acronym community, they say, this is our dream. We want to be non-binary. We want to be this. I want to be a man even though, I want to be a woman even though I was born a man. Everyone's trying to define what it is. And this is what politics is really about. It's not about who honors the Lord and what policies are more like God. That's just a smokescreen. It's more about who determines what the American dream is and how you can live it out. And money has always been the American dream. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It used to be the ownership of property. They didn't want certain people owning property, so they changed it to pursuit of happiness. But because happiness was never defined, what we see now in the culture is everyone is defining what happiness is for them. That's why they say, what is your truth? Your happiness. You do that. Do you? So we live in a culture where capital, money, is king, and any way you can get it, people will applaud you for it. Unless you get caught doing it illegally, right? So you get something like OnlyFans that shows up. And here's a platform where women, an average woman, the girl next door, who just happens to be pretty, who's 19, can make videos showing her about doing whatever, and men will give her money. Is it because of lust? Sure. But deeper than that, like what is, it's just, there's a loneliness. There's a desperation. That men will there are men who probably couldn't wait every day to go to her site and watch it and give her $100, $200, all this money. Like that $67 million didn't come from one person. It came from a bunch of different people. I think they said she had like millions of followers on her social media. I think her social media was like somewhere around 8 or 9 million followers on different social media platforms. That money came from somewhere. It came from someone. But the heart, it's just a sad reality that we live in an OnlyFans society and everyone talks about it from there's a lust standpoint, but there's a loneliness standpoint. There's a loneliness standpoint. Now, as a believer, here's why that bothers me. Because I've seen loneliness do a lot of things to a lot of people. I've seen loneliness and that desperation ruin marriages, ruin people's faith, all of it. We always talk about lust. You know what I appreciate about Jesus? Let me tell you something. I don't know if I'm sure you know this because you're all sharp people. But let me tell you what was different about, let me tell you what I love about this. This was different about Jesus. So there's two ways to view sin, all right? I'm trying to be smooth about it. I had a joint in my nose and I wanted to get it out and I got it. I hope y'all didn't see that, but I just told you so you saw it. There's two things that you need to know, right, about sin. This is what I love about Jesus, right? There's a metaphysical sort of view of sin, right? There's a metaphysical view of sin. This is sin is a cosmic, it's against God. If you're depending on your theology, you inherited it from Adam and Eve. The wrath of God is coming because of sin. You must repent. You must believe. Jesus took the penalty, died on the cross so that he could take the punishment for people who sin, so they wouldn't have to receive that punishment if they put faith in him. There's a metaphysical understanding of how we view sin in light of who God is, and that's biblical. But then there's another side of sin that most people don't get that Jesus did. And this is what made Jesus uniquely different. This is why people in like Islam or this is why people can like be amazed at who Jesus is, right? There's a metaphysical view of sin, but then Jesus understood the human element of sin. Like Jesus understood, like there's human emotion, it's not just metaphysical, like you sinned against God. Yes, he said that and he taught that. But then you would see Jesus doing things like in John 11, when he goes to bring Lazarus back from the dead. Like think about this for a second. Jesus told Lazarus was going to die in John 11. Him and his disciples go. They take the long way. They could have got there, I think, within a day. They got there 4 days later. Lazarus died. Martha runs out to meet Jesus. Then he talks to Mary. And then it says Jesus sees the people weeping because Lazarus was dead. And it says Jesus wept. He wept. Now think about this. Why would Jesus cry when he knows he's about to bring all of these people, he's about to rock their worlds. Jesus is about to bring Lazarus back from the dead, but yet he still weeps. He understood that even though I'm going to bless these people, he connected to the human element of their emotion. You got the woman, the adulterous woman in John chapter 8, just 3 chapters earlier. They bring her in and she was caught in the act of adultery. They don't bring in the dude, ironically, but they put her in front of Jesus and they want to stone her. And then Jesus, so apparently, if this is a true story, because it says it wasn't in the original manuscripts, but he draws on the ground and then he says, "He who has no sin cast the first stone." And eventually everyone walks away. Keep in mind, this woman is terrified. She gets brought into the middle of the synagogue in front of everyone, right? No one sins like that and wants it exposed, but she's terrified. She's there in front of Jesus. She has no idea what Jesus is going to do. She knows that she's about to die and she's about to be stoned according to the Mosaic law. And Jesus says, he who has no sin cast the first stone. And they all walk away. And then he says, I think he says, daughter, where are your accusers? She said, they're gone, Lord. He said, neither do I accuse you. Go and sin no more. Now, Jesus challenged their sin, but he understood there was a human compassion. There was a human component to sin. It doesn't say what he thought or what he did, but he understood something. You got the woman at the well 4 chapters earlier, John 4, when he says to her, you're right, you haven't had a husband, and the husband you live with and the man you live with now is not your husband. And she says, sir, I perceive you're a prophet. Jesus could have said, you're right, you're an adulterous woman that is destined to the wrath of God. He doesn't say that. When John the Baptist comes to him in Luke 7, his people, John the Baptist is in prison because he doesn't know why. Jesus brings a man back from the dead. His disciples come tell him, whoa, Jesus brought a man back from the dead. And John the Baptist, of all people, the only person who knew that Jesus was the Messiah at that particular point in the scriptures, says to 2 of his disciples, go ask Jesus, is he the Messiah or not? John the Baptist's circumstances were so challenging for him that he questioned the very thing that he knew to be true, that Jesus was the Messiah. So the disciples run and tell Jesus. They interrupt Jesus teaching. They say, John asked us, are you the Messiah or whatnot? He says, go and tell John what you see. You know, the lame walk, the deaf have ears, and the blind see. But then he says this, blessed is the one who's not offended because of me. He understood that even though John was expressing disbelief in the moment, that Jesus understood that the real issue was he was offended. He said, blessed, go look at this in Luke 7. Blessed is the one who's not offended because of me. Like he understood that John's question about his messiahship was not just sin and disrespect, but it was he was offended. And he was offended because he's a righteous dude. He's probably thinking, why am I locked up? All I did was do what God said. I told Herod, you can't be married to your brother's wife under the Mosaic law while he's still alive. Now, if his brother died, he could marry his wife. But he married her while he was alive. That's adultery. And he gets put in prison. And he's struggling, right? And Jesus said, blessed is the one who's not offended because of me. Blessed is the one who's not offended that I allow things to happen in I'm paraphrasing. I allow things to happen in your life that you weren't expecting. He could have said, how dare John the Baptist question me? And then after they left to go tell John that, he turns to the crowd and said, who did you come out to see? Who did you come out to see? He said, you came out to see what, this or that? He said, no, he's the greatest born of all women. The dude who just sent his disciples to ask Jesus, is he actually the Messiah? Jesus just told them he's the greatest born of all women, greater than Abraham, Moses, David, Elijah, all the major. He said he's greater than all of them. And the reason why Jesus says is because he's the last of the Old Testament prophets. He got to see literally the Son of God in the flesh. So he's the greatest born, right? Jesus understood the human element of sin. He could have called it out and crushed you every time, but he understood the human element. John, you're offended. This lady, the woman at the well, is probably just lonely. He could have said, you're an adulterous woman. Repent. He didn't. Why am I saying all of this? Because the reality of OnlyFans is realizing that we need to start understanding what's happening in our culture the way Jesus did from the human element. We have the metaphysical view, oh, that's just lust and all this. We get that. No one's saying don't have that. But there's a human element to this. And I feel like no one's talking about, man, how desperate and lonely these people must be. Like, I can't imagine being excited to sit down and go on and log on to a website so I can give someone that doesn't care about me at all, that just because she's attractive, I'm so desperate, I'm going to give my money to this person. This person doesn't care about me at all. And not only, and here's the proof of it, she's going to stop showing me herself after 3 years because she's made enough money that she was in it for the money. She wasn't in it for me. She was in it to use me. And there are people who are so desperate, so lonely, that this is what they do. This is the human element of pornography, of OnlyFans. Because we're created by God for community. Like God has always had community, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. This is why Eve was created for Adam. You need community. You need that. He created the animals. They had animals for each other, which is when God was like, look, there's no one to help the man. He created the animals to have other animals with them that are community. When Adam said, this is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh, he said, you're like me. We can have community. We use that. We look at that scene sexually like, whoa, she was pretty and he was like blown away, but there was also community. We're created for community. And what we see around us is just a complete and utter decimation of people having hope. They're just lonely and they're so desperate that they'll give up money to people that don't care about them at all. Shoot, let's bring it home. How many Christians do you know that are so desperate and so lonely that they'll evangelistically try to date someone that they know is not a Christian in hopes that maybe they will, and they end up compromising themselves, or they end up being hurt because that person never changes. I'm saying this because the natural response to reading an article like or thinking about OnlyFans is self-righteousness and disgust. But for those of us who do believe in the Lord, I think we need to start thinking about the human element. What's really going on underneath? Can you see the human element of these things and actually be sad and pray for and grieve with people? I'm actually really sad about this article. I'm sad that Shaq said that to Angel Reese, because Shaq knew that if she wore a certain outfit and she could dunk, that men would be drawn to her, and everyone would say, "Oh, Shaq's a perv," or "That's lust." And there is that. I'm sure he was saying, because you look good and your body's a certain way, if you dress like that and you're dunking, you're going to get men to watch. That t-shirt is going to make a killing for you. But underneath that, Shaq doesn't even know what he's saying. He said men are so lonely, men are so desperate that they'll pay money just to see a girl who's pretty that can dunk. It's deeper than just lust. Yeah, that's the metaphysical side of it. But there's a human element to it. And I'm trying to learn how to see that. Not to excuse what people do, but at the very least, to find ways to be more compassionate. Because it's just a crazy time. I think so much hope in politics is just due to people are afraid. Like at the end of the day, when I see all this vitriol, all this anger over voting this one or that one, the underlying issue is that people are just afraid. They're afraid of what will happen if the person they don't want to win wins. They're afraid. And I think I could be wrong. But I think for those of us who are believers, I think the Lord is calling us to see the world from that angle as well. Not just the metaphysical, yes, sin against God, repent, hell, all that is very true. But Jesus had another side of it. He understood that people are offended at God, and this is why they're lashing out. I think people are afraid. So what I'm trying to do in these times when I talk about politics, yeah, I challenge, I push back, sure. I push back because the messaging is so big, you got to push back. But a lot of times I'm trying to remind people to not trust, especially believers. I talk to, because unbelievers, they just don't have nothing against them. I'm grateful. They're the mission field. I'm grateful for any unbelievers that watch or subscribe. I'm grateful, man. But I think it's for us believers, I think there's a deeper issue. Like, we got to look at what's behind this. And this is what I thought Jesus was just amazing at. He understood what's behind the fear. What's behind. Last scene. Remember this, right? Mary and Martha, right? I think this is Luke 10. I think it's Luke 10. So Jesus comes to their house. Martha is trying to cook all this stuff because Jesus is here, right? Mary's sitting with Jesus. Martha comes to Jesus. There's only 2 times in the Bible where this phrase is used. Martha comes and she says, "Lord, don't you care?" Right? Don't you care that I'm doing all this stuff and Mary's just sitting there? Tell her to help me, please. And he says Jesus to her. He could have been offended. He said, Martha, Martha, you were anxious about many things. You see, he said, Mary has done what is best. I'm not going to take that from her. In other words, Martha, I don't need you to do all this for me. You need to be beside Mary and just sit with me. Jesus understood the human element. He understood that. He understood, listen, you're just anxious about many things. That's why you're all flustered and all upset. I didn't say, hey, cook me a meal because I'm hungry and feed all of us. I just said, even if that was the custom. So again, I know this is where I'm trying to grow, and seeing the human element. I would submit, if you're a believer, to see the human element too. The reality of OnlyFans is that millions and millions of people are just desperate. They're lonely. And their desperation and their loneliness is leading them away from the Lord. So if you don't have the courage to talk to them, then have the courage to pray for them. If that's all you got, give that to the Lord. He can do a lot with prayer. But don't just look at the low-hanging fruit. Don't just look at the self-righteousness of the political side. A lot of people are just afraid. We've been conditioned to be afraid if we don't get what we want. And I refuse to submit to that kind of fear and anxiety. That's why I say, and I'm not saying this as like to be clever. That's why I say, listen, I'm not worried about who sits in the White House because I know who sits on the white throne. But what do I know? What do I know? I don't watch OnlyFans anyway. So what do I know? Let's go to the tape and see what we're talking about. Says she already was a sex symbol model even before she was in the W. Yeah, she was, 100%. I think Shaq was bullying her, not being a creeper. Yeah, who knows? I don't know. Says, I don't know if you saw this Reuters article about the consequences of people's lives with the OnlyFans platform. There's a huge cost of people's wallets, sanity, and souls. Well said, bro. Very well said. I think it's fascinating to me. And I'm grateful. I'm not saying it self-righteously. I am grateful. I've never gone to OnlyFans. I don't struggle with porn. And I'm grateful. I'm not saying that self-righteously because I know and have helped people who do. We all have our own struggles and we all have our own weaknesses, and I have many, but I'm glad that by the grace of God, it's just crazy. It's crazy to me. So many people call it empowering for the creators. They do. You know why? You know why they call it empowering? Because that actually proves the point, Mark. Why is it empowering? When we're trying to be empowered, what are we trying to empower? Our esteem, our self-esteem, right? This is empowering to me. Means I benefit from it. It's building my esteem up. That's my point. That your view of yourself is so low that you need to be empowered. You get self-esteem by doing this. Because not all of them make $67 million, right? So I think, Mark, that actually proves the point of the loneliness and desperation, and that we need to kind of start seeing through that lens so we can pray for people. Even if you don't have the courage to talk to them, have the courage to pray for them. Giving money to have a woman do something on camera makes lonely men feel like they have something. Yep, well said. Patrolling that they're doing something for them. And brother, it's just sad, bro. It's $67 million in 3 years? She's 28. And we're so used to older men giving younger women money that when you see a Bill Belichick, that's like the dream for many people. That's what a lot of these OnlyFans, that's the dream. That you're an older dude, that now obviously he's famous, so it works a little bit different. But I mean, even in many circles, man, I watch sometimes these modern dating videos on YouTube, and it's just fascinating. Older men want younger women, and younger women want older men because they can provide for them a lifestyle. No one's thinking about like, oh, I want to be married to you for a long time. They're thinking like, man, how do I? And it's just like, that's the dream. Like Bill Belichick is the dream. These guys are 69 and want to date one of these OnlyFans girls, want to be with them. And it's like, there's no sustainability, there's no viability with that type of relationship. People can do what they want, but the wages of sin is death. Yeah. I tell people all the time, look, sin is fun. Sin is fun. But I say the wages of sin is death. And the first 3 letters of funeral spell fun, fam. I tell that to my kids from time to time, boys. First 3 letters of funeral spell fun. So be careful about having fun. First Corinthians, everything's permissible and everything's beneficial. 100%, bro. Men need to get themselves together. You're making all these women rich off of the sin of the flesh. Well said. Well said. I don't care if the cast of First Stone story is apocryphal. It's a great message that is relevant today. I agree. Just so you know, I wasn't saying that it is. I'm just saying that I agree. I look at the heart of what Jesus did. There is a human element that he understood. It's why he could be compassionate. I mean, read Hebrews 2, 14 through 18. Read Hebrews 4, 11 through 16. Jesus can sympathize with our weaknesses, right? That's the compassion element I'm talking about. So anyway, well, thank you, Future, as always. The likes and I can't see the likes and stuff. I don't see it, but where the likes at, man? Y'all been killing me, man. I'm trying to get y'all the content, man. I'm lonely, man. Hit the like button. That's too soon. I shouldn't joke like that, but I'm saying, yeah, hit the like button, subscribe. Come on, y'all. I'm giving y'all the smoke. So many men have no friend. Here we go. This is it, Mark. Preach. So many men have no friends and are searching for a community in whatever way they can. That's how these sites and red pill community and things grow. Mark for the win, bro. Mark for the win. Mark for the win, fam. I totally agree with that. I totally agree. I think, you know what? And so let me give you a practical way. If you're a believer, let me give you a practical way to do this. When you go to church tomorrow and you see someone that you don't recognize, I don't care what their culture is like or what their age is like, it takes a lot to go to a church. It takes a lot to go to a church. When you go there, it's awkward. Like when you see that person, go up to them. Because let me tell you something. So at my church, we just had a bunch of people want to become members. Members class was big. And one of the first things they said was, we love the teaching here. I'm the primary teacher at Solid Rock. I'm the primary teacher. So they're basically saying, your teaching is one of the reasons why we're here. Here's what I said to them after everyone shared this stuff. I said, you know what? I appreciate that. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for that. I'm encouraged that you feel like you can benefit from the way I explain the Bible and break things down. And I said, but here's the reality though. Like, it doesn't matter how much you like my messages or whatever. If you don't have community in the church, it's not going to keep you. My messages, even if you like them, they're not going to keep you. What's going to keep you is having friends and meeting people in the church. So I encourage them when they come to introduce themselves to and not just wait for people to come up to them. And I said, good, you'll like the messages. That'll keep you for a while. But no, churches that are revolved, believers that are drawn to a church because of the message and not the community will not last. Will not last because you're going to find there's way better teachers than me. And you don't have to come. You can watch me online. We stream live every Sunday. That doesn't mean anything. I'm glad that God's given me a way to communicate the Bible, but it doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme. It doesn't compete with community. We need that. So Mark, you're spot on. Eric, very well said. Lonely fans. That's it, right. And honestly, Mark, I appreciate that. I think that's how we have to think about it. Instead of judging people for the metaphysical side, that's just lust and sexual immorality. Totally true. But there is a degree in which a lot of these people are lonely, fam. They're just lonely. And I think, yeah, it's just crazy. Greed isn't love. I agree with that, famo. It never is. Reminds me of what C.S. Lewis said about the young man that goes to a red house. He's not looking for sex. He's actually, very well said, Steve. Very well said. I agree with that 100%. Who wrote Hebrews? Just kidding. I don't think anyone knows. Some people think Paul wrote it, though. It doesn't, to me, some people think, it doesn't match Paul's writing style in the other books, to be honest. But some people say Paul wrote it. But most people don't know. As a woman, I've got all the smoke for people who use that it's empowering to women argument. Well said. Well said. 100%. That greeting time during service is awkward, but I push through, LOL. It is awkward, right? That's what it's awkward. But you know what, though? You know who it's more awkward for? The people who don't go to your church. So I appreciate you pushing through, Mark, because we always think about what's awkward to us. Imagine how awkward it must be to someone who's not a part of the us. They're just sitting there. They had the courage to come to church. They may need community, and they show up, and then no one talks to them. They may like the message. They may come back a few Sundays because the word was good or the worship was good, but they will not stay long term unless they grow in relationships. We have to have community. That's why the Bible talks about unity, because you can't spell community without unity. You have to have that. We have to imitate God in that community, in that unity, and we got to bring people in. So I appreciate you pressing through, brother. We should all do that. All right, I'm out of here. Go see what my boys are doing. I may even peek at I might have to look at the sermon and just make some tweaks. But I appreciate y'all. The reality of OnlyFans is that it's lonely fans. Very well said, Eric. I'm taking that from you, but I'll give credit where credit is due. Grace and peace, y'all. See you at the next live stream.